Motivation Money Making Monday. This is the all access right here, Motivation Money Making Monday right here, taking it to another level right here. I posed a question a couple of weeks ago about politicians and their responsibilities and their duties, how they are serving the community. And this honorable politician right here, council member, stepped up to the plate and was like, I'm more than willing to accept that challenge and tell the people what I do so that the people can be more informed about the duties and responsibilities that him as a public servant holds. So without further ado, the King Sergio Adams is here to tell you about what he does, how he has upheld his position, and we're just gonna have a conversation about the community and the things that he has done, because he's very, very active in the community. So without further ado, Mr. Adams.
All right, thank you, Angelo. Thank you for the invite for Motivation Mondays.
Yes.
It's a honor to be here, and definitely looking forward to the conversation this evening, because there's so much that I think people don't realize when it comes to public service, as well as local government and what local government does for them. So
Yes.
I think some of these questions today hopefully can answer and clarify some things for people out there.
Okay. So what position do you hold?
So I'm the councilman here in the city of Albany, representing the 7th Ward.
Okay.
So for those who don't know, the city is broken up into wards, which have boundaries. The boundaries for my ward, for the 7th Ward, runs across Delaware Avenue, Morton Avenue, as well as 2nd Avenue and Whitehall Road, Academy Road, New Scotland, and Holland Avenue.
Okay. Now, what's the duties and responsibilities of the seat that you hold?
So as council members, we are the legislative body for the city.
Okay.
So what that means is we make legislative changes, whether those are laws, ordinances, resolutions here in the city of Albany. And so those are just 3 different types of legislations that we introduce on a regular basis at our meetings, and that people come to us seeking.
Okay. Okay. What are some of the things that you have done to improve the community and the people that you serve with that position that you hold?
So with this position, again, like as the legislative body, we oversee all of the departments in the city of Albany. So again, our job is to not only make the legislation, but to ensure that the city is functioning and running efficiently. So making sure that the departments that are in City Hall or under the city of Albany are getting the resources they need to properly manage, but also run their programs, hire people. We also make sure that each year when we do our city budget, that we are reviewing that city budget as a council to ensure that the needs and wants of the community is included in that budget. And so the budget process is something that starts around this time of the year, around April, where the executive branch, the mayor's office, is starting to meet with different departments, seeing what their year has looked like so far, how many people have they hired, how their program's doing, how much money have they spent out of their personal budget throughout the year, and getting an understanding as to what the vision looks like for the upcoming year for the city of Albany. And so as a newer council person, my biggest thing has always been supporting community and making sure that the people in the community are aware of the resources available to them, but are also connected to their local elected officials to be aware of what's going on in their communities on a very basic micro level. So that's ensuring that the trash is getting picked up on your street or in your neighborhood, making sure that the trees are being trimmed during the time of the year that it needs to be done, making sure that around this time of the year that we are looking at our streets and seeing where do we need to put speed humps, where do we need to fill in potholes. These are all things that happens throughout the year that our city departments are tasked with. But as a council, we are overseeing and to make sure that these things are getting done. We're making sure that the departments have the budget to be able to do these things. And when they are not, they come to the council to be able to either get assistance with creating some type of legislation to move something forward or transfer money to a different line item or anything to be able to pay for certain things. So the great thing about being a council person is the involvement that we get to have within the community. And so when it comes to making changes in our community, again, for me, it's trying to address the root causes in our communities. And that means, going beyond the surface level of the issue and trying to remedy the root cause. And so for a lot of our communities here in the city of Albany, especially our Black communities, we have concerns with education and schooling, where a lot of the students that are going into our schools are either reading below grade level, they're performing math lower than some of the other surrounding schools. But when you look at that, you say, well, it's just something maybe going on in the school. But we have to then look a little bit deeper at the root causes and understand that, again, for some of our families here in the city of Albany, they are going through very difficult times navigating to survive financially. We have a concern within our community that we have family members and residents that have untreated mental health. We have an issue of violence, and that is systemic through generations. So these children are growing up in families and homes that are generational, filled with trauma, with abuse, with violence. And so our children are not getting the necessary attention. They're not getting the necessary resources to make sure that when they're going into school that they are able to be successful. And unfortunately, here in the city of Albany, the school district doesn't fall under the city. So that's its own separate entity. However, myself and other council members do feel that our voices and the community's voices should be tied together, because as we're making changes and improvements to our city, we also need to be able to have some type of say-so in what happens to the school and what's happening to our children. So that leads a lot of families and individuals to say, well, we need more after-school programming. We need more activities for the kids. We need something to fill their time with. And, on the city level, we can assist with things like that because we have the ability to use our park and recreation department to create programs and push initiatives that catches kids' attention and inspires them to want to join sports teams or get involved into yoga or getting involved into exercise. And these are things that we're pushing and we're trying to get out. But at the same time, as I mentioned, when people aren't aware of the resources or things around them, they don't feel supported. They don't feel like things are changing. They don't feel like what's being done is enough.
When are the council member meetings?
So council meetings are the third Monday of each month. But what's also important to mention for people to realize that throughout the month, there's also committee meetings. So there's different committee meetings, as I mentioned earlier, like I'm on the finance committee, there's a housing committee, there's a land use planning committee, there's a law and buildings committee, there's general services committee. And so all these committees also are meeting throughout the week or throughout the month. And so depending on the topic, depending on the legislation, or the concern that a person or resident has, you would also want to go to those committee meetings to be able to see how the conversation for crafting legislation goes, because that's where it gets crafted, that's where it's discussed. So if people have some concerns regarding a particular legislation, you can go to those committee meetings to say, hey, this is my feelings towards this topic, or this is my suggestion towards these things, and again, be able to have some public comment or public input as to what's going on. So it's very important that people go to those meetings as well, because when you get to the council meeting, things are already finalized.
Got you.
All right. So when you get to the council meeting and the legislation is being introduced and voted on that night, that means you missed the whole entire process as to how we got here. So when that legislation is read at the council meeting, if there's something in there that people don't like, or there's a language or word that people don't like,
those other meetings that can change that language before it even gets to the council meeting.
Exactly.
Got you.
Exactly.
How can the people find out the days and times of those other meetings?
So they're online. So that's probably the most accessible way nowadays for people to go. You can go to the city's website, www.cityofalbany.com or .gov, and go under council meetings, and it gives you the schedule for our council meetings, committee meetings. It informs you on the contact information for your council person. So if you're unaware of who your council person is, you can go on the website, figure out who your council person is, get their email, phone number, name, to be able to contact them, and then also find out what committees are they a part of. So that way, when issues come up, you can go to them for these issues or concerns.
Yeah, that's very important information. Is any other last words that you want to put in?
Yes. So the other big part that I think a lot of residents or people may not always be aware of is the fact that the city council and the county legislator are two different bodies that handle completely different things.
Gotcha.
And so we will have people who come into our council meetings, speaking about issues that the county addresses. And so it's very important for people to not only think that the city council is the only body on the local level that addresses city issues, but you have the county legislators that you all have. You have a council person, you have a county legislator that represents your area. There's things that the county focuses on that the city council does not touch at all. Like it's not even our business.
Wow.
So for example, mental health. Mental health is handled by the county, Albany County Mental Health, right?
Right.
So when people come in to the council, which is great, not a problem, but they have to understand that we don't really address the mental health side that happens in the city that goes through Albany County Mental Health.
Got you. Wow.
When there's other issues in regards to like food, that goes through the county.
Right.
Social services through the county. So for the families and people who are going to Social Security, DSS, these different places, those are all run by the county.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
So if you're not satisfied or like the how things are being handled at DSS or things like that, that is the county. You should probably go to the county legislative meetings that's held over on State Street, which is down the block from City Hall. But those are the concerns, and they should be informed and know the difference between what their county legislator does and what their city council person does. And I think that will solve a lot of issues or questions for people.
Miscommunication.
Because you're coming to one meeting like, I took the time to come to this meeting, but then you realize this is not the meeting or the body that even handles. This is the county that meets next week at a different time that has nothing that's separate from us. There are things that the county and the city works together on, but that's very on case to case, base by base situation. Is not a merge.
Well, that's very important information, and it's key that the people understand who handles what, so that the things or the issues, the problems that they need to have addressed, they're going to the right people and holding the right people accountable for. So that's very important. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
And within that, it's understanding who has the money.
Yes.
Because people think the city has the money. No, it's the county that has the money.
Wow.
So when
Wow.
there's sports teams and people who are coming to our council meetings saying, "Hey, we need stuff for our kids. The summer's coming up." We don't have that money.
Right.
That's the county that has that money.
Wow.
The county is the one that are giving basketball teams and stuff $5,000, $2,000, $10,000. They're the ones that are giving small businesses grants, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, just free. So it's being able to know where your resources are, who are your elected officials and what they do. So that way we can make sure that when people are coming into our meetings that we're being effective and we're being efficient. The great thing about being a council person is the involvement that we get to have within the community.
Right.
And so when it comes to making changes in our community, again, for me, it's trying to address the root causes in our communities. And that means, going beyond the surface level of the issue and trying to remedy the root cause. And so for a lot of our communities here in the city of Albany, especially our Black communities, we have concerns with education and schooling, where a lot of the students that are going into our schools are either reading below grade level, they're performing math lower than some of the other surrounding schools. But when you look at that, you say, well, it's just something maybe going on in the school. But we have to then look a little bit deeper at the root causes and understand that, again, for some of our families here in the city of Albany, they are going through very difficult times navigating to survive financially. We have a concern within our community that we have family members and residents that have untreated mental health.
Yes.
We have an issue of violence, and that is systemic through generations. So these children are growing up in families and homes that are generational, filled with trauma, with abuse, with violence. And so our children are not getting the necessary attention. They're not getting the necessary resources to make sure that when they're going into school that they are able to be successful. And unfortunately, here in the city of Albany, the school district doesn't fall under the city. So that's its own separate entity. However, myself and other council members do feel that our voices and the community's voices should be tied together, because as we're making changes and improvements to our city, we also need to be able to have some type of say-so in what happens to the school and what's happening to our children. So that leads a lot of families and individuals to say, well, we need more after-school programming. We need more activities for the kids. We need something to fill their time with. And, on the city level, we can assist with things like that because we have the ability to use our park and recreation department to create programs and push initiatives that catches kids' attention and inspires them to want to join sports teams or get involved into yoga or getting involved into exercise. And these are things that we're pushing and we're trying to get out. But at the same time, as I mentioned, when people aren't aware of the resources or things around them, they don't feel supported. They don't feel like things are changing. They don't feel like what's being done is enough.
Yeah, I think like a lot of the times the people don't know that it's also a process as well. Like people think that it's supposed to happen instantly, even though the things need immediate attention. But at the same time, the changes that need to make those things happen doesn't and oftentimes can't happen immediately. So what's some of those challenges that you face to actually making those things happen within the community that you want to see change, whether it's education, whether it's the making sure that their families have gainful employment so that the financial issues that they are dealing with in the homes is no longer present as well.
Cool.
So the things that, let me start the question.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the things that have challenged you to actually making those things happen within the community, whether it's with the education or whether making sure that the families are gainfully employed so that they can financially provide for their families without it being a struggle mentality, and they can move so forward with like a success mentality for their children, and their children could actually be successful all the way around?
Sure. That's a very great question. And it's a very layered question, to be honest with you, because the challenges and the hurdles come in different forms at different times. You know, I will say one of the clear things to me is the participation from our community. So it's a very difficult conversation to have because, you know, we're not saying that our community is just like not involved,
Right.
but it's to what level are you involved, right? And, you know, it's unfortunate when we have a lot of discussions in our council chambers regarding issues that really deal directly with people of color. And you don't have people of color there to represent themselves, to speak up for themselves. So at that point, as a representative, you know, you're pretty much carrying the weight of that community as to your voice in those meetings, where again,
People can amplify the voice if they was present.
Exactly. And it sends a larger message to those who do not understand that this is a community that does care about this issue, but they care so much that they're willing to organize around it and be present at every or as many meetings as possible in order for the people who are listening and making the decisions to realize that this is a very important matter and that they are not going anywhere until that change is created or started. And so that's kind of where it, for me, it takes place. That's the, you know, inception of it, because when these issues come up, again, we need to be able to see and hear from our communities. We can't just go off of assumptions or thoughts or speculation of I know how my community feels if I don't get the opportunity to hear from them directly about what's going on, whether that's through education, whether that's through community programming, whether that's through employment. Right. So, for example, you know, employment is a very big thing right now, where a lot of people are still looking for jobs, but they're looking for jobs that will progress them in their future. Right. And as the city of Albany, you know, we've been looking and trying to hire as many people as we can because the city's understaffed in many different departments. Now, there has been a history of where people here in the city of Albany feel like the people in City Hall has, you know, prevented or caused hurdles or put hurdles in the way of people of color in order to get certain jobs within City Hall. Because when you look at it, it seems like the people of color are mostly, especially the men, are in more of the workforce side of things of DGS, you know, cleaning up, moving things, breaking things down, milling, doing street pavement, and that's great. Labor intensive jobs. And that's great because those are needed. Those are needed to be filled. But when you have people who are working in those positions for so many years or even decades, and they are being stuck at a ceiling where they cannot move up, and the department or system within is not providing them with the clear steps as to how to make that next transition in their career. You know, again, we have issues back at our families when we're not able to provide, we're not able to make the necessary money to cover the increasing cost of rent.